Okay, so Thomas Nelson,
Okay.
he's the guy from Home Care, and
Yeah,
he's going to give us a talk about services that maybe he provides or give us some information about home care
yeah.
and why it's so important.
So let me do this. What usually happens is I'm going to share my screen, but then usually when I go into my presentation mode, that's when things usually go a little haywire. So let me
Just try it
see if
out.
I can make this work. Okay. So I'm going to share, say, on the screen, and then I'm going to, okay, I'm going to share that, and then I'm going to see if this works.
And
Oh boy, it worked. I'm amazed. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to start there, and it looks like I'm going to start it at the beginning, might be helpful. Okay, there we go. So thanks everybody for having me here, Mary Lynn. I appreciate it. So, in the spirit of leaving the family legacy, where I thought the perspective here might be helpful, is how it impacts, planning and the family caregivers. So everybody, when you're talking about home care, it's not just about um, hiring an agency to come in and take care of your loved one. There's a whole dynamic, and we become part of kind of this dynamic care team. So I wanted to approach it from that perspective, because what happens is many times is you're not planning for this, and many times I get called in times of crisis. So I think this is all very much poignant as far as where home care fits into the overall planning. One of the things that I wanted to share is not only do I own Synergy Home Care of Campbell, Los Gatos. We're based right here in Campbell, but we serve the whole South Bay. I'm also a consumer of home care. My parents have had home care for many, many years, and that was one of the impetus for me to open my business to be able to support others from my experience. But also, I'm also a family caregiver. So when I am engaging with my clients and I'm talking to them and they're talking about the challenges they're facing with either setting up the pills or doctor's appointments or going over in the morning and coming over at night, I can 100% relate, because my mother is very advanced stage Alzheimer's. She's still alive. She's in skilled nursing facility right now because she needs 24-hour supervision, 24-hour care that was beyond what my father and in home care could provide at the level um, they had resources for. So she's in a skilled nursing facility. And also my dad is still in my childhood home. He's had a couple strokes, which has triggered a vascular dementia. So not Alzheimer's, but he still has some of the signs and symptoms of dementia, confusion, not able to keep track of certain things. So he needs additional care to keep him on the tracks. But as a family caregiver, I'm there every Sunday putting his pills together. I'm there, probably 4 or 5 days a week, getting his groceries, doing the things that we need to do to keep him on track. And how that works with home care is we work as a team to keep our loved ones or whoever is receiving the care independent in their own home as long as possible. And what we're finding right now with 11,000 people plus a day turning 65, and this generation has said over and over again that they want to stay in their own home as long as possible, this becomes part of the overall plan. So that's just a little bit about me. One of the things that there's a quote that came out that just made a lot of sense to me. So aging is inevitable, but being prepared is not. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about here. Many of the people that call me, and I talk to probably about 80% of the people I call, I'm talking to them about other things besides home care as well. Because sometimes they call me and we start talking about home care, and then it leads to one thing and the other. But they're usually calling me in crisis because something has happened. They've many times, if we have a spouse that's taking care of the other spouse and they're maybe a little bit worse off as far as chronic issues or illnesses related to aging, and they do it for so long, so long, so long, and finally they just can't do it anymore. And that's usually when they're calling me. Or if there is some type of a health event, heart attack, a stroke, or their dementia has escalated to another level. So the people that I feel like are benefiting the most, I just had this conversation over the weekend with a woman that called me, they're thinking down the line. So I'm going to need some type of support in the future. So I'd really love to start thinking about what home care is all about, how that fits into the other resources and support systems to keep people independent in their own homes. So a lot of the folks that we're talking to are presenting today are part of that continuum. So financial preparation, as well as other just different support, and how do we make sure we have all the pieces in place so when we do get to that next step and we need to trigger home care, maybe a little at a time, then you've already got it figured out. And now you're not making decisions on the fly or in type of a crisis mode. Come on. There we go. So one of the things that goes along with that other quote is that we start planning, and this picture is of a child doing a Scantron. So they're doing their SAT. They start planning for college years and years in advance. You know, you're putting money away, you're making sure you're taking the right classes, all that. But most times people don't prepare for their advanced years as far as their care. So where they find themselves is in the situation where you become a family caregiver. And right now, there's a couple different scenarios I'm going to put out there. One is that I'm seeing a lot of, there's some type of dementia or Alzheimer's in the older years. So 16 million people are caring for somebody with dementia alone. And if you add in Parkinson's and stroke and arthritis and all the other different types of chronic illnesses, there are lots and lots of people that are caring for others, and they're in this situation that they didn't plan for, because nobody thinks they're going to get sick or somebody who's near them is going to get sick. So it's a lot of people. There is a high probability at some point you're going to be in this situation. The other family caregiving scenario now is the sandwich generation. These are the folks that are taking care of their older parents and their young kids while they're working and while they're trying to maintain their own life. Personally, I consider myself in the club sandwich generation because I've got parents, I've got a 26-year-old that boomeranged back from college, and I also have a 12-year-old in middle school right now. So, and with my own business and with a number of other things. So the struggle is real here, people. You know, we're out there, we've got, we're taking care of a lot of people. And if we don't have the support and the resources to help offset this, you can see right away it starts to get a little unwieldy. Part of this sandwich generation squeeze is, you're trying to balance between your kids, your parents, work. Think about just before you get into the situation, you've got fires with work, you've got normal life situations that are happening up. But if you're trying to balance all these across the board, it's really tough. And what's sometimes happens after a while, you can keep it up for a while, but there comes a time when there's a high chance of caregiver burnout. So this is our balancing act here. If the elephant takes his foot off, something's probably not good is going to happen to that kid. So it's symptoms of the caregiver burnout. This is where these resources can help offset this. But I don't want to be so negative on caregiving. Caregiving can be an amazing opportunity to become more intimate and build a deeper relationship with your family members that you're caring for. But also, and it's also a great sense of accomplishment and purpose, and to be able to serve that role for somebody that you love. But what ends up happening many times is that you get consumed by it and you start to lose yourself and your own self-care. And then sadness, anxiety, loneliness, exhaustion, all those things start to come into play. And that's where you want to get things in place ahead of time instead of waiting till you're at that point. Because once you've hit that wall, you're probably not making the most sound and logical and best decisions for you and others. You're just trying to get out of that space, so you may end up making decisions that aren't the best once you get to that exhausted burnout phase. So home care isn't the only thing, and I wouldn't recommend it to be the only thing, but there's a continuum of care. There are community resources out there that I would tap into in advance. There's senior centers, or a variety of other organizations, maybe specific to a chronic condition, Alzheimer's Association, Parkinson's Foundation. There's so many different Arthritis Foundation that there are support groups. There are resources that you can tap in for those specific things, as well as just in general. If you are in the sandwich generation, you may be with an employer that has employee assistance programs or EAPs, and they may have benefits and resources for you to be able to tap into. Many times there'll be discounts, there'll be a variety of services that help support families in crisis. Most people don't know about those or don't even know what's available to them, because it's not a very well understood benefit, but typically exists for the people that dig a little deeper into those EAPs. Transportation programs, delivery of groceries. There's so many types of other services that if they can take a little bit off your plate, if you don't have to go to the grocery store for that older parent, or that's an extra hour you get back. And those, it may not seem like a lot, but those hours add up, and that could be that balancing point for you to be able to maintain your own peace and allow some space for your own self-care to recharge yourself. Now coming down to kind of what my area is the in-home care services. So what is home care? So one of the things right off the bat is home care is not medical. So there's home health, which includes typically nurses, and that's covered through your insurance. So if you have an episode or you need medical assistance in your home, that's home health. So that would be a nurse, a physical therapist, some type of other type of medical professional that would help with, medication administration, taking vitals, wound care, those types of things. Home health is strictly non-medical. And if you are a licensed home care organization like Synergy Home Care is, you have certain boundaries. So we can do everything up to those things I just described. We can't provide insulin shots or any type of medication administration. We can't do wound care. So if somebody's has had some type of a wound and they're recovering at home, we can't do anything with that. We can't take vitals. Even with the super simple blood pressure cuffs these days, we can't do that. Just because if something was read wrong, the caregivers are not trained in a medical realm. What we do provide is help to keep people independent in their own home at the level that they need it. So not everybody needs full home care, helping shower, personal care, making them meals, all those types of things. They may need less. So there are 3 areas, and I'm just going to go through this quickly right now. So companion care typically is for a couple different areas. One is, especially through COVID, we've had seniors or frail elderly who are by themselves. They have no social interaction outside their homes, and it helps for somebody to come, do kind of the minimum or provide respite for that adult child caregiver so they know somebody's with them, so they can go. Let's say if a parent lives with the family, the caregiver can come, make sure they're safe, make them a meal, socially interact with them, help them with a variety of things to just keep them engaged and safe while the family goes out for a type of respite. Also, with people with dementia or early onset Alzheimer's, they don't necessarily need a lot of hands-on care, but that interaction, that routine of somebody coming, helping them with the things that they need help with, like helping them set appointments, helping them with the shopping list, helping them do a variety of things in an organizational type of way that will just help them stay on the rails. The next level is more of kind of the homemaker. So it's everything in companion, although now we start to do some of the things that are becoming increasingly hard for people, which could be doing the light housekeeping, laundry, actually going on errands, taking them to friends, doing like a lot of the basic bathroom maintenance, those things, and preparing meals. So all of the homemaking type duties, chores that help people stay clean, safe, and nourished, in their homes would be the next level. The third level that we do is a variety. So depends on what level they're at. Right now, we are caring for some people who are in hospice. So that means that they are, nearing the end of life, and they need a lot of assistance. Sometimes they are bedbound. Sometimes they use a wheelchair and they need help transferring. They're a fall risk. They need help with a shower assist, so we can help them be clean. We can help them feed them if they need help with that. We do medication reminders to make sure they're on track with their medications. Many times people are, if they just can take their medication on time, hydrate, and eat well, that can really turn people around quite a bit. But this is the highest or heaviest level of care we have, transferring people with the Hoyer lift out of there, which is a big lift to take them from their bed to their wheelchair or to another area. And all of this is non-medical, but we do have our caregivers are trained in each of these areas. So incontinence care, they will do a diaper change with them, and they'll make sure that they're clean, dry, and that helps avoid all the issues and skin breakdown that is associated with those types of things. That is the beginning and the end to most of what home care provides. Now, that being said, as long as it's not medical and it is part of what somebody enjoys to remain independent and have this highest quality of life, we have helped people plant gardens. We have helped people, play games with them. We've taken them to friends' house. We've done a number of things to assist them to be as normal or to pursue whatever endeavor that makes them happy or keeps them feeling as normal and human and living the best life they can live. And that's our aim, is to fit into their life, to make sure we're helping them at the level they need. We're not going to overdo it if they don't need it. And then we will be able to progress with them. So I've had a number of clients that started out as very early Alzheimer's. And as they progressed, we progressed with them. At first, it was mostly safety, security. Then we moved on to actually some of these personal care items, like helping them shower and helping them eat when the disease has progressed, and we move right along with them. When we match our caregivers to our clients, that is the aim, to make sure we have a good long-term fit, because the relationship to us is really important as we move forward, especially with Alzheimer's. You try to create a lot of very predictable routines, because many times they're feeling very out of control. But Alzheimer's is one small piece. We help everybody, every different type of chronic illness or issue. That also being said, right now we're talking about leaving a legacy, but we also help people with a variety of disabilities. I have a master's degree in adapted physical activity, which is helping people move who have disabilities. And I've been working for many years in that field, as well as health and wellness. And that's kind of where we fit everything in. So we do these tests, but the aim is to help people be their best, and many times they're better than when we found them, and that's the aim for us. One of the questions that comes up is, how do you pay for care? There, with traditional home care, as it stands right now, the predominant way people pay for care is private pay. So it's typically not part of insurance. There are exceptions to the rule, and things are evolving in that area. Long-term care insurance is also a way people are paying for home care, as well as other assisted living or skilled nursing facilities. And that is becoming much more flexible and in ways people can structure their long-term care insurance. Before, it was only long-term care and that's it. Now you can structure it with life insurance and have a lot of flexibility on how those benefits can serve you in the future. So it's a lot more flexible. So if you don't end up needing long-term care, it stays in your life insurance policy. You can cash out on that later. So I would look into that, sandwich generation people. There's a lot of flexibility for the future. So veterans benefits, there's some of these other ones, there's limited coverage, but they do exist. The VA has benefits for home care. It's a limited number of hours, but they do pay for it. Medicare Advantage C is starting to pick up a little bit more momentum. Less on the West Coast right now, but it depends on your carrier. If you have a certain carrier that includes home care as part of that Medicare Advantage portion, there's also limited hours. I think it's so many hours a year. So again, not a lot, but there is a focus for Medicare to start to pick up more of the cost and for home care, because it's becoming more and more prevalent. And actually 2020 was supposed to be the year that Medicare was going to do more. And then of course we had this pandemic and we were focused on other things. But I've attended a few Medicare webinars, and there is a lot more attention to it now. There hasn't been anything passed yet per se, but it's moving in that direction. So there might be opportunities in the future. Then some pensions from I know teachers unions and those types of things sometimes have these types of benefits. It really depends on the specific ones and what benefits are rolled into those packages. And then if you are qualified for Medi-Cal, there is IHSS, which is in-home support services, which is offset as well for lower income to pay for that. I was talking to a woman the other day who had a grant through, I think it was through Parkinson's Foundation. So there are grants out there as well if you look, but predominantly these are the ways that as of now, people are paying for home care. I think that's the end. It's a lot of information. I tried to keep it fairly high level and leave space for questions, but I mean, with any one of these little areas, we can go deep dive for about an hour. But I figured which any direction people have questions, I'd love to answer the questions.
Yeah, that was very good, Thomas. Thank you. Because I think that's the interesting thing, like it's not hospice, but it is home care, right? And I think that, in my experience, I'm just going back to my recent experiences that, he dealt with a lot of hospice care.
Yeah.
But the hospices were really good because they were still be able to reach out to other services like such as yours or other things that, their client might need. So I think that's really important to have those referral partners in place for that.
Yeah. And we've worked with, I noticed one of the speakers, I forget his first name, with Grace. We've partnered with Grace in the past as well, with Grace Hospice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're working with a couple different hospice organizations right now. So like we mentioned, they provide the medical and we do,
Yeah.
everything else to keep them comfortable and really, we have one hospice guy in hospice right now. He seems like he's improving from our care, just
Yeah.
because he's more engaged. He's happier. We're doing fun things with him,
Yeah.
But before he's just by himself. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely has a lot of different dimensions to it, other than just keep people safe or giving their medication and the basics. It can be so much more, and
Right.
that's how I select my caregivers, the ones that really want to do this. And I get pictures all the time in the care notes. They're dancing, they're doing whatever they want to do. They're in.
Yeah.
It's great. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so important to have the care because like you say, their children they could be, if they're married or they had kids, they might be separated from the kids. So the kids aren't going to be coming over and
yeah,
helping them. And can they reach out to help get support for them
yeah,
themselves? And then you're talking about benefits. We had Ron talk about living benefits
yeah,
um already. So he was just talking about you get critical care insurance, which if you got really sick, your payout could help pay for, support payment,
yeah,
service too, right?
yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important to figure out like the financial part of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of options now.
Yeah, I think it's because, there's most of us boomers are aging out, right?
Mhm.
And so there's a greater need for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is Janelle. I'm multitasking. That's why I'm off camera. But thank you, Tom. This information was very helpful.
Well, good.
I've shared earlier some of the things that I'm dealing with in my life at the moment as a caregiver and support person. And then I'm also thinking about, you have the families where, we're right in the middle of COVID. You have one spouse that is the main income earner, and the other spouse is the one with the physical issue. So
Yeah.
I have a cousin, unfortunately, they're not in California, they're in Arizona. But long story short, the wife is trying to take care of the two children, 5 and under, and the husband whose mental clarity due to extensive back surgeries and issues, he's not doing simple things like taking his meds. There's additional surgery. So she's just, stressed out crazy. And we just talked about hiring in-home support and help. What would you suggest to families like that? Of course, they're in Arizona, but I have other friends with similar situations. Like, do they reach out to a company like yours to start that
Yeah.
discussion?
Well, coincidentally, so Synergy is a franchise. And
Okay.
when I was looking for a business to open in this field, I looked hard and long at who was the best and who had the best reputation. And Synergy was always in the top 5. And Synergy is actually, headquarters is based in Arizona, Gilbert, Arizona. So there's quite a few. There's quite a few in Arizona. I don't know where they live, but it's pretty. There's more synergies in Arizona than California, or at least Northern California.
It's interesting. So she actually happens to work for a large health company. How do you support families when that person that needs the support isn't cooperating to get the support? So the wife is like, I need help to come in and you need to follow through.
Yeah.
But, her husband is just.
It's super tricky. I think my rule of thumb is as long as one of the two people in the household is for it, so the wife, if she really needs it, then she should push for it. I've come into a couple situation where the kids, the adult children, sometimes they live out of state, they say, you need home care, mom and dad. And they say, oh, I don't need care. And then the dad's going, how much does this cost? And so when you have the two care recipients, or neither of them want it, I don't even bother. I always say, get at least one of them on board. But in your case, I think as long as the wife is, she is for it, then I would be able to help coach maybe in a direction, and anybody would be able to, if they're a halfway decent home care organization, they should be able to help coach through um, the benefits and navigating that conversation with the
Mhm.
husband,
Yeah.
because he needs to stop thinking about it being about him,
Right.
and it's more about her and
Yeah.
helping her. So allowing himself to get care and to take some stress and burden off her so she can have more space to do other things, maybe take care of the kids or do something for herself. That to me is where the conversation needs to go. And that might take a little while, but it's not really about the person receiving the care in that situation. I mean, certainly it's helping him, but that's where that caregiver burnout that I was talking about
Mhm. She's
can
already
be
there.
avoided, because
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what's more at risk.
So do you refer out, or would you prefer that she find synergy in Arizona? Or I actually can help
Well,
her
how
do
it works
something.
is, I mean, the quickest way would be just Google Synergy near me,
Perfect.
Synergy
Mhm.
Home Care, and they will, the website automatically directs you to the closest one right by you.
Okay. I
Yeah.
had one follow-on question for you. So
Yeah, sure.
what about our older ones? I think of another friend, her arthritis is getting really bad, and our time together has been cut off because of COVID. I haven't been inside of her one-bedroom unit that she just moved into, a senior place. Long story short, she's on Medi-Cal.
Okay.
So with folks like that, is there support that Synergy can give, or is it something that they should just follow through with their Medi-Cal? Like,
So Medicaid, so Synergy, so we're pretty much private pay unless you
mhm.
have like long-term care or something. If she is
Okay.
Medi-Cal, there are options. So I had mentioned there's something called IHSS, which is in-home support services. That's through the county.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm familiar with
And
that.
so there, it's a
H.
little bit different of a structure. What they
Mhm.
do is they vet out the caregivers, make sure their background checked and all that. And you can pick from who's available to whatever time you need, and you would then become the employer. So Synergy as an organization or home care agency, I'm the employer, you hire me, I provide you a caregiver to serve your home care needs. Through IHSS, you hire the caregiver that has been vetted through the county. So you know they're safe, they have the basic training, all that type of stuff. But then you would schedule them, you would pay them, and then you get reimbursed by the county. Um, or it's there's a couple different ways. I don't know the exact nuances, but you still have you're responsible for scheduling, paying, hire, fire, train them. So you're essentially the employer, but it's funded by the county. So you're not paying them like an employer.
Yeah, no, this is great. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And
I
I should also say too, there is a difference between an agency and private caregivers, because you'll see private caregivers as well. They're
yes, okay.
usually about $10 less an hour. So sometimes that is a factor. I mean, it's expensive. So but there are reasons for that. So one of the reasons is typically private caregivers don't have the license, the insurance or the bonding that a home care organization would have for your protections and the caregiver's protections. So if something happened to them, there's workers' comp, there's general liability, there's all the things to protect you and the caregiver in an employee-employer relationship. And that's what a home care organization does. And there's also very strict rules with the state around fingerprinting, background check, the amount of training you need to do. All those things go into the home care organization, and we are the employer. If you hire a private caregiver, the upside is it's less expensive because it's just with the arrangements with you and the caregiver. But they typically don't have all those other protections. And unless you do the background checks and all the due diligence on them, you don't really that's not a given, as it is with the home care organizations that is licensed with the state. So just something to, I'm not against it because I know the financial piece of it is real, and sometimes you can't afford an agency and you can afford somebody privately, but just go through the due diligence on the background check and checking references and all those types of things. Don't cut those corners, because there are some great ones out there, but I've heard of other not so great stories.
Yeah.
Somebody wasn't who they, represented themselves to be.
Right. Horror stories, quite frankly, right?
Yeah, I mean, not as much a horror story as much as, nothing seriously bad happened, but it's you're not going to get as consistent of an experience or have the peace of mind to know that you have somebody who's gone through all of those steps. So, and if they decide not to show up anymore, then you got to start over from scratch. With an agency, we would then be able to find a replacement, either a fill-in for that day, that week, or a new person ongoing. Because people quit jobs. So, but that's one of the other benefits of an agency versus a private caregiver.
Yeah. Okay. And you, Synergy is considered a private caregiver or an agency?
No, so we're an agency. So
Okay.
we're a licensed home care organization with the state of California.
Got it.
So we license every 2 years. And part of that too is my caregivers are my employees, and they are actually associated with me at the state level. So if anything happens, they know they work for me. I don't have any contractors. And that's not unique to me. If you are a licensed home care organization, you need to have those pieces in place. They're your employees. They go through the training, the background checks, all the components to make sure that we are above board. We have a physical office that you can walk into with office hours. Those are all the things that are required by the state for us to have a licensed home care organization.
I have a question.
A lot of strict rules.
Hi, I'm Donna.
Hi, Donna.
I'm a very healthy 71-year-old for my age. And I have, like, how many caregivers do you have on staff, Tom?
Well, that's a great question. So if any home care organization brags about how many caregivers they have, it doesn't really mean anything because it only matters how many are available. So I have about 45 caregivers that work for me. I have about 30 more that we have interviewed. I've started putting through the background check. We're checking their references and we're vetting them for a cultural fit for us, because I had mentioned before, we look for people who want to do this work and are called to do this work.
Mhm.
But of those 45, I would say probably I have 30 that are very engaged right now, and the other 15 they have an availability that hasn't fit with my client. So if I have somebody who needs a 6 to 10 at night or something like that, and I have a pool of people, those 15 that aren't in assignments, plus the other 30 who might have other availability, and the 30 that I'm in the process of vetting through right now.
Okay, so if I live in Fremont, and I do, could I use your agency, or do you have restrictions on how far they travel?
So I don't specifically have restrictions. Fremont is a little out of my area, right? And so I would be more than happy to talk to you and consider it. But always my concern is I want to have good continuity of care and quality of care. And if I get too far out of my area, if something happens with this perfect caregiver I found for you, I want to make sure that I have somebody who will be able to backfill them if they're sick or they leave, or be able to get a resource to you right away.
Yeah, so most of your staff live right in the San Jose area is what
I would say mostly are in the, I mean, I serve as far south as Morgan Hill, but that's, I'm using a couple caregivers from Gilroy and South San Jose. So if I have enough caregivers that are in close enough proximity
Mhm.
to where you are in Fremont, then I would definitely consider it. I'm pretty transparent. If I don't feel like I could do it consistently for you and provide a really good assurance that we can serve you consistently, then I'll just let you know I won't.
Yeah, what I'm doing is taking good notes for the future.
Yeah.
Future reference. Now this Medicare Advantage C, how would I, as just a layperson, follow this momentum? Do you know? Medicare is so complex.
Yeah. Well, I think first place to check is with your provider. So I know there's, it's Blue Cross or Blue Shield Advantage or Kaiser Advantage. There, it just depends on who your provider is that is administering your Medicare funds. And so you would check with them and find out, do you provide home care, in-home care as a benefit as part of your Part C um, of the insurance. And if they don't, you can start to look for ones that do. I know I get letters in the mail all the time, and my dad gets letters in the mail all the time every time open enrollment comes around.
Yeah.
And you could potentially switch providers. I mean, you have that Medicare that you can apply to whatever provider that you want. So you can start to do research ahead of your need, that you don't have a need right now, but ahead of your need, you can find out what provider is moving in the direction, is offering that as a benefit.
Yeah. And I heard you say that some pension benefits this. And I am with PERS, Public Employees Retirement System.
Okay.
Is that the one you were mentioning by any chance?
Well, that's just one that, so my both my parents were educators. My mom was an aide, so I think she's hers, and the other one is STIRS, right? There's STIRS, which is the teacher, the PERS is or is that the opposite?
No, STIRS is our retirement pension, but
Okay.
our medical provider then, if we choose to keep it, is PERS.
Okay.
So apples and oranges.
I would look into it, and I've just heard of some of my clients, they have had with different unions and different things like that they've had some piece of home care it's not typical, but there's so much untapped resources because people just don't think to ask. So I would just go in and find out.
Yeah. So for payment, do you help the person tap these resources, or do they and their family have to figure it out?
Well, I'm happy to help navigate it, but every type of insurance. So I work with a number of long-term care insurance.
Uh-huh.
They're all different,
Yeah.
So typically what qualifies you for the benefit is similar, but how they pay it out, their rules and all that's all a little bit different. Some of them have a kind of a grace period that you need to pay out for a while on your own, like a deductible, and then it kicks in. Some of them are a percentage. Some of them are a set amount, and then once you run out, you run out. So they're all different.
Okay, so basically, it's private pay, and then we go back to our long-term care insurance or our Kaiser company, and then we get reimbursed from them. Is that how that
Yeah.
works?
So yeah, so if you have long-term care insurance, so I've done it a couple different ways. So most agencies will bill you as the recipient, and then I would then provide all the backup information, which would be the care notes, the paid invoice, all the different backup to show that you indeed you received the care per the care plan and the assessment, and you paid the invoice, and they take that information, and usually it's a 10 business day, 30-day turn around to pay you. And once it gets rolling, it's very consistent.
So you basically give receipts, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also have billed directly the long-term care because the individual just wasn't in a position to be able to pay me up front. So they negotiated that with me to bill directly, and I was happy to do that. Because actually, to get them reimbursed, how their long-term care did it was actually it was more of a hassle than it was for me just to bill them directly, and it was cleaner. So I'm trying to reduce stress in people's lives. So if I can do that through the billing as well, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, very, very helpful. Thank you. I
Sure.
have to go to a doctor's appointment. So thank you, Mary Lynn and Janelle and Jeanette and Tom, and thank you again. I
All
appreciate
right,
it.
you're welcome.
Oh,
Thanks
you're
for
welcome.
coming.
Bye.
A great day.
Thank
Uh-huh.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. That was very good.
Excellent.